All right, welcome back. We're gonna get started today with chest and back focused upper body dumbbell or body weight is what we'll use for our first one today. So we're starting with push-ups. Of course it's push-ups, right? You could do an alternate shoulder press on this, but the shoulder press going up overhead is much more focused on your upper shoulders and arms versus the front side dominant chest muscle. So we're going to use the push-up. I'm going to do a leaning push-up today, which is going to give me a higher volume of exercise because it's at a lighter intensity. And I assume that's probably where most of us will want to start our journey in this exercise, not necessarily exactly down to the floor already. So we're going to lower ourselves under a smooth, slow descent right to about the top of the ribs, where the ribs meet the sternum, the bottom of the sternum. We're back up to squeeze and lower slowly. Back up to squeeze the chest and squeeze the arms tight and then lower slowly. As you're lowering, you're also squeezing back and down through your shoulder blades. You want to do this slow with a lot of effort so that you're almost shaking, trembling, and requiring those muscles to stabilize. Much slower on the way down, as the theme has been through all of these videos. Then you're coming up with some power. Slow down, power up, squeeze, slow down, lock in at the bottom, be controlled out of the press so you're not pushing, bouncing, or cheating at the very first initiation. That makes things so much harder. Right there at the bottom, the first 2 inches. Very important not to cheat through those. It's getting tough. Slow to the bottom every time. Squeeze to the top. Probably a few more here, that's it. Getting pretty tough. Going one more. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Locked in. Drive. Woo. Remember, it's not to the point of mechanical failure. You don't want to cheat. You don't want to lose your technique and form. It's really just about finding that shake, tremble, controlling your speed, your smooth contractions, and finding fatigue at the end. All right, to counter or complement actually that horizontal pressing motion, we're going to go with a horizontal pulling motion. However, in order to do that with our heavier dumbbells here, I am going to go pretty heavy on this. These are 25s. That's really still moderate, but it's the heaviest I can go with my dumbbells. So I got 25-pound dumbbells. In order to get gravity on my side so that it's a horizontal row rather than an upright row, I have to hinge forward. Now, your hinge is going to be regulated or limited by the flexibility of your hamstrings. Remember, when you hinge, you don't bend. We're not bending or folding the spine. We are popping the hips up and back to hinge into this row. If you can only get down this far, I'd rather you be with a very straight spine and proper hinge form than going lower and getting a rounded back or losing your tailbone into something like this. Keep that erect spine, okay? We're going to start there by picking our weights up a good dumbbell or a good deadlift form. We're going to find our center, get things prepared in a good sternum position. That sternum, middle back, never rounds to the ground. Here we go. Now we can begin with our high row, our pull, and then release slowly. It's not a high pull, just pulling up. Squeeze and slowly release. Squeeze, Slowly release. Again, that slow release is our key here. Squeeze up, slowly release down. We're finding shoulder fatigue, middle back fatigue. We're feeling those shoulder blades squeeze tight every time, and drawing the upper arm and the shoulder blades back together. So those hands and dumbbells are only coming up because the shoulder blades are squeezing every time. You cannot leave the shoulder blades behind. It'll look very different. I'll give you one repetition of here, just rowing my arms. Rowing the arms is not what we're looking for. We're looking for a shoulder blade, an upper back row. Ooh, the fatigue is hitting me in the hamstrings, in the spine, the lower back, middle back. Barely hitting the shoulders right now, starting to. So it may be those supporting muscles that we have to default to. We have to say, okay, the supporting muscles aren't able to maintain good, proper alignment anymore. I'm gonna go for 3 more. Squeeze every time in those shoulder muscles, in between the shoulder blades and the back of the arms. And rest. Ooh. Goodness gracious. So I felt that obviously in the muscles I'm targeting between the shoulder blades through the upper back, posterior shoulder, a little of the arm, but it was the static supporting muscles of my erector spinae around the spine and my hips that really started shaking, trembling, and fatiguing at the end. There's no need to put your spine at risk in order to train your shoulders. You can always rest around and do another round of shoulders, instead of putting the back at risk, doing extra repetitions or heavier weight. Okay, for our chest stretch, we're going to use the door and the door frame stretches. Probably pretty well known and widely used. We have various positions where we can put our hands for this chest stretch, and none of them are really incorrect. The technique, as we've taught you to push and pull through your shoulder blades, is the same here. You want to use those shoulder blades, drawing them down and back to open up the front of the armpit and chest. So you can go from a low position as an introductory chest stretch. You may want to split your stance up as I'm showing you here. Lean into it, squeeze down and back through your shoulder blades. Don't worry about extending your back or extending your spine forward too much. We want to maintain abdominal control and squeeze through the shoulder blades down and back. Don't feel that version very much. You may come to a elbows flared and push-up position type of version with your hands on the wall. This one, we allow those elbows to wrap around the sides, around the rib cage. And this one, you should feel a stretch no matter who you are. You're squeezing down and back, keeping your head elongated, spine in line, not jetting your head out forward, trying to enhance the stretch with other parts of your body. It's not. It's more of a compensation. It will put your body potentially at risk. It's not really going to give you much additional mechanical advantage. The harder versions of these are when you start bringing your arms higher. We got the field goal position here. And it's good. It's always a good stretch here. However, you have to kind of lean into this one because there's an internal external rotation component of this, that if you lean into it a bit more, taking my sternal angle and my nose and forehead angle here, slightly down to the ground. That's a big ticket right there. If it's too much, remember, go back to those versions prior to that, work on them for a few weeks to loosen things up, gain your range of motion, and then possibly one of these days you can go up to the Y angle. I go with a soft elbow Y because I don't even have a great range of motion in that rigid elbow Y. I'm doing a similar thing where I'm going to lean in the door frame and squeeze the shoulder blades down and back. You can see in this Y angle the spacing between my collarbones and my cheeks or my chin or my jawline is not much different. There's a little bit of a raise here, but it's not jamming my shoulder blades up and minimizing the space between my shoulders and my ears. I got to keep some spacing there so you don't go into the turtle disappearing into a shell there. So we don't want this to here. If you find yourself shrugging too much, you're just too tight right now, and you need to work on version B or version A of that chest stretch first. Okay, for the latissimus dorsi stretch here, the latissimus is a big muscle that comes all the way from the back of the arm down to the right above the butt cheek here, right below the dimple in your back. So it comes all the way down this side here. It's the biggest muscle in your upper body. And it's not just a shoulder blade or shoulder depression muscle coming down when it shortens. It actually wraps that arm around the upper arm around the back. So we're going to put a little rotation with this stretch as well. Again, I'm going to use the door frame. Luckily, I've got a little bit of a finger grip on the trim over here. What I'm going to do is step the same, grab a hold of the trim at about forehead, nose height. Step the same side leg back. Simply bend with it and rotate. So I'm starting square, rotating lightly to grab a hold. As I step back, I'll rotate even more, and I bend around. I'm looking for this big stretch down the lateral side, through the shoulder, through the upper arm here, down through the shoulder into the rib cage, down all the way through to the lower back, and maybe you even get it down into your hips here a little bit as well. The whole time I'm trying to maintain decent head position. You can see I'm kind of hanging my head here. I should have it a little higher. Trying to maintain your head and your neck in a semi-controlled position, not just letting it flop over there. Big breaths here. These are really important breathing muscles all the way from your shoulder through the ribs into the small of your back and your torso. That posterior core. So on this side, it's going to be a little different because I don't have that same grip. What I can do is kind of feed my fingers through the door, jam there, find a grip, and then find a different angle at that stretch. So it's the same stretch, but I have to angle myself slightly differently. Or I can do it on the back side of the door without the door jam. We come in here and I do a similar position just like that. Here you can see that connection all the way from the back of my upper arm through the shoulder, from the shoulder down through the ribs, from the ribs even into the small of the back, and into the posterior core, maybe down even into your backside hips here. Use that breath. Important not to overdo that stretch. Remember, always looking for a mild stretching sensation.